It's a difficult one. So Sandra writes, I have a good relationship with my vet, and he's very open to my questions and research and treating my older cats. Those are all fantastic qualities you want in a vet. However, he has gotten a few things wrong lately, and one of them has been quite devastating to her cat, Char. It was the decision to treat him with prednisolone without informing me of all the risks involved, and jumping the gun on a potential cancer when Char has more pressing issues like anemia, and all the tests have leaned in a probably not cancer direction. Char now has fluid accumulation and likely congestive heart failure, and has been hospitalized. I will be charged thousands of dollars at the emergency vet. The ER vet strongly believes that the dose of pred was initially too high and it could have caused the problems. Pred, or prednisolone, is a type of steroid, basically. She continues, my Char is worth it, but I can't help but feel that this could have been avoided. How on earth do I address this with the vet without hurting our relationship? I feel that my vet's heart is in the right place, but he's been making some mistakes lately. So first of all, Sandra, I want to say, I hope that Char is pulling through. I hope your kitty is doing okay. Your vet is very lucky to have you, to be your vet. And what I mean by that is you were willing to discuss this. You were willing to have an open dialogue about these issues. You are dedicated to this amazing cat, and you're willing to talk, not attack, but talk through these issues and somehow find a way to maintain that relationship. That's admirable. And we're gonna talk a bit more about that a bit later. Congestive heart failure. That's scary, right? Because we're talking about the heart. Now there's a key thing that has happened in the communication here that I want to address when it comes to steroid-induced congestive heart failure. And what we mean by this is a steroid was given, and then subsequent to that, a cat presents with a heart issue. They don't look good, they need hospitalization. Now let's be very clear and very objective of what this is, because what I'm thinking and what I'm hoping is that this information might help move you through with dealing with what the ER vet said and what your veterinarian is saying. Corticosteroid-associated congestive heart failure in 12 cats. It was published quite a long time ago, 2004. Cats are reported to be remarkably resistant to the adverse effects of exogenous corticosteroids. That just means they tend to be less sensitive to steroids. However, a study was conducted to describe the clinical and laboratory findings and the outcomes of 12 cats diagnosed with congestive heart failure following steroid administration. Depomedrol. So this is a type of injectable medication, injectable steroid. Typically can go in at, a fairly decent dose. Depomedrol was the most common steroid administered. Time from the initial steroid administration to the diagnosis of congestive heart failure was 1 to 19 days. They go through some of the details and they say, consequently, congestive heart failure should be listed as a potential adverse effect of steroid administration. And so I've been in conferences, and how some of this information has filtered down to veterinarians has been, when using injectable Depomedrol, a common steroid, you need to be cautious in pets that you think could have a heart issue, or it is something that you should talk to clients about before making that decision. Now here's where things get a bit gray, a bit murky. We still, in 2018, 2019, we don't have a causal relationship. We have an association, and those things are quite different. By the time you're putting a pet on a steroid and bringing it to a hospital, there's stuff going on, there are illnesses going on, and any of these things that happen will cause stress in the body. And guess what? One thing that can bring out congestive heart failure? Stress, big time. And so prednisolone, when we talk about oral prednisolone, it gets even more gray. We are less sure about the relationship of oral steroids and congestive heart failure. So in 2019, a lot of us have the opinion that if a steroid can induce a congestive heart failure in a cat, probably that cat, had a congestive issue in the first place, and it didn't take a lot to tip that over. And so whenever I'm using a steroid with a pet, with a cat, one thing that I always mention is that, you know what, these medications, generally, these are the common side effects. These are what they do, these are what they don't do. But then I tend to present a wild card situation. And what that is if there is anything in your cat that we cannot detect, that we haven't detected through history, exam, or diagnostics, but it's actually there, and your cat is just hanging on by a thread, a stress, a change can bring that out. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not just steroids, it's any change, any medication that can do that. Any change to a system can be perceived as a stress, and so it is not surprising to me that many medications over time are perceived to have a causal relationship. I gave this, then this happened. But stress has a big part to play in this. So here's the perspective specifically for your cat. The ER vet strongly believed that the dose of pred was initially too high and it could have caused these problems. That's what the ER vet strongly believed. And here's what bugs me a little bit about that. Here you are trying to make the best decisions for Char. You get a very divisive opinion that sounds like was communicated to you as if it was very factual. Whereas the underlying information we have about that in 2019 is very gray. We have no causative studies that shows that. All of a sudden, you are now dealing with all of that baggage. It's like, this is what happened, here you go, this is all the consequences, deal with the information by yourself. And all this is happening at a time where, you know, something serious is going on with your cat. This is when those relationships that you've built up over time, this is when people have to come together in effort to help Char. Now, I'm definitely not defending improper use of medications or improper dosages. What I'm saying is, as a professional, my expectation for myself is I could pick up the phone, I could call the veterinarian, I could have a discussion on your behalf, I could talk about dosages, and instead of letting you sit there with that information by yourself, that bomb of information that has obvious implications in your relationship with your vet, and I can be professional and I can have that discussion on your behalf and I can get back to you with something balanced. Instead of you sitting there wondering what to do with the implications of this pretty heavy message, I could have helped pave a path where all efforts and all emotional energy is going into helping Char. As a professional, I could have initiated that discussion on your behalf. It is absolutely proper for the ER vet to tell you his or her opinion. It is also proper and professional for me to have a discussion with my colleagues because I wasn't there in that room. I wasn't there for that discussion. I don't know all the specifics of what was done and why it was done and what that rationale was. So what I'm saying is, it's obvious that you feel hurt, that you feel misguided, and those feelings are genuine and they're real. What I'm also perceiving from this situation is something maybe was presented as a definite fact, whereas in reality, it is so gray. There are different interpretations from this, and to come to those, and if those interpretations are real for your cat, it comes from the discussion. It comes from talking. It comes from people talking together, and not just dropping a bomb on you and then leaving you alone to figure out, like, what do I do with this? This is awful. I have to feel this way now. So you ask, how on earth do I address this with the vet without hurting our relationship? So from what you've said, which is, he's been genuine towards you and Char, he's been, 100% helpful in the past, but not with these current issues, it may be that Char needs two vets. A veterinarian who is well versed in the issues that you're facing, and then your veterinarian who can help you with the day-to-day access to the things that you need. If everyone involved is for Char, it's for you, then there should be no problem. But Sandra, the beauty of your question is this. You know something that a lot of people might not know, or maybe in their life they could never get there. And what that is this. You know that when the chips are down, when you have a problem going on in your life with your cat, it's the time where you want those relationships, the people who are important to you in your life, to come together to help. When push comes to shove, this is the time for people who have helped you time and time again to show up and help. So we're assuming that you want to continue the relationship with your vet. And we're also making the assumption that your vet was wrong. There was a improper dosage that was given. Maybe it was an improper medication. I don't have enough information to definitively say those things, but I'm making that assumption for this discussion. Let's say that happened. Let's say I was your vet and I made the mistake. Well, I can tell you right off the bat, personally, I would feel mortified. Making a mistake, or even if I didn't make a mistake, just the fact that a pet had a side effect, an unintended side effect from something that I did, I can't describe the level of anxiety and just dread that causes. All vets will make mistakes. Typically we have things in place such that any mistake doesn't make it to the patient. We have things in place so there are protections. Oh, you made an error here, but your protections have made it so that pet never had the consequence of that mistake that you did. But let's say something went through, something got to that pet. Those days where that could happen, it's like you want to give up. You want to do something else. I could go work on cars, my hobby. I make a mistake on that. Well, all I did is lose some money on it, but I didn't endanger someone's relationship. I didn't endanger a life. Those days you really question, should you be doing something else? So what's the first thing that I would do? I would apologize. Even if I felt that I made the right call with the information that I had at hand at that point in time, life has different plans. I would apologize if things went in a direction where you were hurt or your pet was hurt. Let me tell you a story. About 8 years ago, I prescribed a steroid for a pet, and the dosage I prescribed was correct, but the pharmacy side of the clinic, that's where the mistake was made, and the dose that actually went out was incorrect. Well, that pet didn't do well. It eventually came to light. Here's where the mistake was, and even though I prescribed the proper dose, a mistake was still made. And the first thing that I did was apologize. The second thing that I did was every single week I went to their home. I checked on their pet. Of course, I did this at no charge. It was going there to be with them during this experience, letting them know I cared, and coming together as people who had respected and loved this pet over time, and now that he really needs me, I'm here. Yes, I was part of the mistake, but now I'm here to be part of the solution. And they forgave me. And I'll never forget it. And that act of forgiveness helped to make me the vet who I am today. So Sandra, the fact that you want a relationship to continue with your veterinarian, this is a gift. It is a gift that you are giving, and a discussion where you lay out how you feel, where an apology is made, where an understanding that we're all here for Char and forgiveness moving forward, let me tell you, those three things in 2019 are in short supply. Discussion, understanding, and forgiveness. It is a gift. So Sandra, good luck with Char. You do sound like you have good people in your life that are going to help you with him. So there's one thing I want to address about this question in general. It's a very sensitive thing. There are people hurt and angry, of course, and those are justified ways of feeling, who would say, well, screw this fact. Just hammer this guy to the wall. Assuming that we're dealing with decent human beings there, what I would say is this. We've got to take care of our cats, and we've got to take care of each other. Mistakes are bad. No one wants to make them. They do happen. The suicide rates in my industry, veterinarians, they're 4 times the average in the populace. And there's a number of reasons for that. I was just at a bar actually last week talking to a colleague. Her friend who's a vet committed suicide, took her own life. One of my mentors, I didn't know her personally, but in terms of, low stress handling and behavior, she took her own life. It's overrepresented, and that's there for a number of reasons. So when we're working together as decent people, let's take care of our cats. Let's take care of each other. Thanks.